You had it for bringing?
Yeah, they're bringing. They like to do the all-nighters. If it ends too early, they don't feel accomplished.
Wonderful.
When I left, my alarm that I'm supposed to wake up went off. So it went at 3:45. My alarm rang. I'm sitting still there in yeshiva.
Well, don't push it when you feel like it. We understand.
Okay. Okay, I think we're holding by Itmar and Daf Chavtesam Beis. Yeah, you see that?
Okay.
Yeah, Chaim was asking me about this on Shabbos. I don't know if it's going to get any clearer with today's Gemara. We may have to look it up. Let's see. Itmar, we have a statement of Amirai, Mafkin Zakov. If there's shards on the floor because the person decided to break something or he threw it there and he decides that he's mafkir it, he doesn't want to keep it. Now, mentioned before that there was a difference between how it got there. We're going to see through as we learn this Gemara that now we're talking about that it got there through pshia. Pshia means negligence. It's totally his fault that it's on the floor, and it's his fault. And he's saying that that he doesn't want it. So what's going to be the halacha? So there's a machlekes. Machlekes is between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar. So machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar are two Amiraim in Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yochanan is the famous Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Lazar is Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas. One of them says chayev, one says pata. You know, when the Gemara does this, it says chadamar. One says this, one says that. It's because the Gemara doesn't know who's the one that says what. It just says one says this, one says that, but we didn't really clarify it, which one goes according to which opinion. We could figure it out, but we have to quote other statements from them and to see who's who. Leima, the Gemara says, Leima manda mechayv kerameir, manda pata kerabanan. If you go back to our Mishnah, we had in the Mishnah, actually in the Brisa also we had that if someone his jug broke in Rosh Hashanah and he doesn't pick up the pieces, Reb Meir says chayev, the Chacham say pater. What are we talking about? Maybe we're talking about that mafkin zakov. Or in the Mishnah we have the same thing where Rabbi Yehuda says only niskaven is chayev, only if he intends to keep the pieces, but not if he makes them ownerless. If he makes them ownerless, he's pater. And Reb Meir says chayev. So whoever says chayev and whoever says pater over here, I don't know, but one of them will follow Reb Meir. One of them who says chayev. One of them will follow the Rabbanan who says pater. The Gemara says no. Ali b'der Reb Meir kuli amalei pligi. Reb Meir says chayev. Both Reb Yochanan and Reb Elazar agree that according to Reb Meir, it's chayev. By chayev, he has to pay someone that makes ownerless the shards. Ki pligi, when is there a machlekes? Ali b'der Rabbanan, only according to the other opinion that says that he's pater. One says he's only going to be pater in one case, but normally he's chayev. The other one is going to say, yeah, he's always pater. Man de pater k'Rabbanan. The one that says pater, he says, yeah, the Rabbanan say pater. So he's exempt. If you don't own it, then it's not considered your bar. It's not considered your pit, even though those shards are on the floor. You don't have to pay for the damages. It's not yours.
I have just a general question.
Yeah.
How do you make something here?
I think you just announced that it's hefker.
What if it's yachid?
I think you can still say that it's hefker. Anyone who wants can take it. Yeah. I'm not sure. I think even if one person, I don't know if you need witnesses to make it hefker. Right. Man de pater kerabanan, man de mechayev, the one that says chayev, Malachil say to you, another damri afil rabbanan. I actually could even fit with the rabbanan, even though I say chayev and the rabbanan say pater, but I'll explain that ad kan like pater rabbanan until when? Until here, the rabbanan didn't say pater ella only. In other words, the rabbanan only said pater. Maybe you have, many we have this. Loi pater rabbanan ella. They did not say pater except. What that means is they only said pater. You drop the double negative. You just turn it into a positive. They only said pater b'mafkin azakav dahacha. If you make it pater, if you make it ownerless, like this, like here, that's when they said pater. What are we talking about? When it got there ba'inus, when it was unforeseeable circumstances, unpreventable circumstances. You have to keep reminding me. Unpreventable circumstances that's how it got there. Then we're going to say pater because we couldn't prevent it. In other words, there's no negligence in the fact that it got on the floor in the first place. And now that it's on the floor, you don't own it either. So we don't have any claim against you. That's when they said pater. Because that's considered unpreventable circumstances. Mafkin is akav da'alma, but if there is a claim against him, what's it doing on the floor? Why'd you put it there? Why'd you throw it there? So then mechayev, then they would say chayev. So there's two opinions here what the Rabbanan would say if the case is slightly different from the regular case when they said pater. When did they say pater? When it fell. But if it was put there, or if it's there because of negligence, then there's a machlekes if the Rabbanan would say chayev.
So if someone had like a box fell over,
Yeah. So there would be
the shards are these shards.
And he says, I'm not keeping the shards.
And
It hurts someone. So it's a machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar if he's going to be chayev. Yonatan was saying if someone has a vase that breaks by mistake, and then the owner decides he doesn't want to keep the shards, and someone gets hurt from it. If he wants to keep it, then it hurts someone. Then that would
we can make that point that no one usually
not today because it's a disposable society. But in those days, everything was reused. Now, even a shard, the Gemara talks about it, even a shard was used to catch a drip of oil from a pot that had a hole in it. You know what I'm saying? You would use the shard to catch something else. Yeah, it was like a patch, but yeah, it was a patch that wasn't attached. It would,
Let me say something about
there would be like an ashtray. A shard would turn into an ashtray, sort of.
Like a purity or something?
And we had to do with purity. There was the interesting Gemara that when does a vessel become pure when it's broken? Like how broken? So we said that it says it depends who owns it, but if a regular homeowner owns a vessel that gets a hole in it, a leak, it's still considered a vessel because if you can't use it for water, he'll use it for rice. Rice. You use it for grain. If you can't hold the grain, so he'll use it for olives. If you can't hold olives, he'll use it for pomegranates. Once pomegranates fall through the vessel, then it's considered not a vessel. I don't know how big the pomegranates were back then. Okay, so but everything was reused, and it could be that he wants to keep even something that's broken. So, but if he doesn't, there's a machlekes if he's going to be responsible for the damages. Okay. So we figured out what the machlekes is, that it's not in the opinion of Reb Meir, it's in the opinion of the Rabbanan that usually say pater, but maybe over here he should be chayev because the way that it got on the floor has some responsibility. He was negligent at how it got to the floor, even though he doesn't want to keep it now. One says pater, one says chayev. Who says pater, says chayev? That we don't know. Testayim, let it be settled. The Rabbi Lazar, the chayev. Rabbi Lazar is the one that says chayev. How are we going to prove that? Rabbi Lazar is the one that says that even if you don't own it, you're still chayev. Rabbi Lazar Mishum Rabbi Shmuel, because Rabbi Lazar says in the name of Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel is much earlier. Somehow we heard it in his name. The word Mishum could mean because of, and it could also mean like the word shame, like Mishmei, in the name of. Mishum means in the name of. Name of Rabbi Shmuel. There's two things that are not in a person's possession. But the Torah forces it to be in your possession. This could be there's a problem with possession of drugs or something or different things. Person they catch someone that has illegal possession of something. So he says, "What do you mean, Tefker? It's not mine. It's not going to help because they say, well, it's yours anyway. So in the Torah, there's also two things that we say it's yours anyway, even though you're claiming that you don't have possession. One of them is Velohain Barbashas Rabin. Someone digs a pit in public property, or he puts a package in public property and says that he doesn't want to keep it. They say, well, so tough luck. It's yours for all responsibility purposes. We make it yours, right? And I'm sure the same would be in common law. If you put something out, on the street or something, they tell you that you have to take it in until the garbage day or whatever. Say, no, it's not mine. So tough luck. You're responsible anyway. Something like that. And chametz mishei shayis alamayla, and also chametz. Now this is interesting because what happens is you're not allowed to own chametz on Pesach. It's not only you're not allowed to eat, you're not allowed to own it. What happens is at a certain time on Erev Pesach, noontime, the chametz becomes prohibited to have benefits from. So the rule is if it's prohibited to have benefits from, that basically means that it's ownable because it's worthless. No, 1 second. If you didn't announce that it's ownerless, you didn't say kol chamira, what to say that announces that everything should be like dirt. You didn't say that. So at chatzos, it becomes prohibited to have any benefit. That means even if you sell it, you can't take money for it. You can't even give it to a stray animal. It has zero value. You can't use it. You can't burn it and use the flame. There's nothing that you can do with it. Nothing. It has zero value. Zero value, then how can it be considered yours? There's no owner. There's something without any value can't be considered. It belongs to anyone. It has no value. There's no ownership of something without value. So what Rabbi Elazar is saying in the name of Rabbi Shmuel is that even though it has no value, but it's considered yours even without the value. So why is it yours? So that the person should violate the law. It's put into his domain just to violate the law. So Tistayim, let it be settled. Why is this a proof? Because if a pit in public property, which you don't own, is considered yours automatically, that means that Rabbi Elazar is the one that's saying that if you try to make it ownerless, we make it yours. Mafkin Zakiv is going to be chayiv because we make it yours.
He dug it.
I'm sorry? Because you dug it or because you threw it there.
What does it matter if it's value without any value or without any benefit? It's still yours. There's a lot of junk on my property. My wife says it, right? It has no value. It's a piece of junk. It's valueless, but it's yours. Get up.
Now, something that is junk that has no value maybe doesn't have value. It has some sort of value. You can melt it down and use it for something. It has some sort of value. You can use it as a paperweight. You know what I'm saying? It has a value, even though what they mean is that it doesn't have enough value to hold on to it, but it does have a value.
Even if you do that, they say it's not worth the paperwork.
Right.
It's poisonous. It has this certain hazards to it. No one wants it. It has a negative value. If you give it to any rodents to eat, they'll contaminate the land with it.
Well, they would use it to get rid of whatever. I don't know.
That's bad. You can't do that.
Yeah, I don't know. You got me. I don't know.
So that is, it has no value. It has no owner, or it has no value. Well, I agree with you on that. Let's say, and but it has no owner. Or I'm an owner anyway because it's on my property, or because I dug it.
If it would be causing damage in public property,
Could be.
then it would be considered that it's owned by that person.
Yeah.
So you're saying everything has intrinsic value?
Everything has some sort of value, unless it's totally prohibited. Otherwise, you can do something with it.
So what happens in the case of the hummus on
Yeah.
Let's say it becomes prohibited to have, and it's considered a violation. Let's say if a person wants to say that, you know what, I'm not going to burn my chametz, I'm not going to nullify it. I don't need to, because at chatzos, when it becomes prohibited, it becomes not mine.
Yeah.
No, that's not how it works. You got to get rid of it before. Okay, so we think that we have a proof that it's going to be Rebbe Loza that says chayev, because it becomes yours even if it's public property and you claim not to own it. It becomes, you have to throw it out to destroy it, burn it. No, he doesn't get benefit from the burning of it. And it's not. It's some burnings you can have benefit from, like oil of truma that you want to that became tame. You can use the flame for something to cook or something. You know,
marshmallows on it.
Yeah, maybe to roast marshmallows. Okay, what's it called? S'mores. Does Rebbe Lazar really say this? That the person's going to be chayev for things that he doesn't own in the public property? Rebbe Lazar said exactly the opposite. The Tanana was taught in the Mishnah. With that Mishnah is coming up today. So on. So you see, remember we spoke about Daniel sent us that article about getting the public to make fertilizer for you. You do is you throw into the street straw and other things so that the public runs over it and they trample it, and then it turns in basically it disintegrates, and not disintegrates, but it gets so crushed and all of that it turns into fertilizer. So you get fertilizer because the public's trampling on it. So here, if someone takes, no, he's not taking straw over here, but here he's taking actually manure and he's putting into the public
manure?
area. What is manure? From the animals, the waste, what comes from the animals. And usually stuff you don't want to step on. But in the field, they use it to fertilize the field. He put it into the public area. And someone gets damaged by it, he's obligated for the damages that he did for putting the manure into the field. We're going to have a bunch of cases coming up about that. Whatever the case is, he's chayav for the damages. That was the Mishnah. Rabbi Elazar says about this, this was only taught if he wants to keep it. But if he doesn't want to keep it, he threw it out there because it's like ownerless. Potter, he's exempt. Alma mafkin zakov. Potter, we see that if someone makes it ownerless, he's exempt. You try to tell me Rabbi Elazar says chayev because he says name of Rabbi Shmuel that he's chayev. Turns out I have another source that says that he's potter if he makes it ownerless. We're trying to figure out who holds what over here because we have machlekes Rabbi Yechon and Rabbi Elazar, and we're bringing a proof this way that way. You know, where we don't really have a proof. Amar Ravada Barava explains that case is talking about that the reason why he's potter is that he put it back into the same place. Yeah. No, I left out one point. Doesn't mean that he put it there. Means that he turned it over. Someone else put it there, and he came along and turned it over. So because he turned it over, it's as if he acquired it, and as if he acquired it makes him responsible.
Why did he turn it over?
Maybe he thought of taking it, and then he said, "I'll come back later," or something. So Rabbi Elazar says, when would he be responsible? Only if he intended to acquire it. But if he turned it over and didn't intend to acquire it, then he'd be exempt. Now the question is, but he should be responsible anyway, because he put it there. It says no. He put it in exactly the same place that he found it, which means he didn't acquire it and he didn't really move it. So therefore, he has no responsibility here. He didn't put it there. Someone else put it there. He didn't acquire it, and he didn't move it to any place either. So that's why he's going to be potter. He's totally innocent in this whole thing. It just happened to be walking by and you're telling me I moved it. I didn't really move it. I put it back in the same place. Amar Ravina, Mashal Deravada Barava, Lamada V'Daima. It says, 1 second, I have a question on this because I can compare it to something, but I can compare it to, it's not going to be the way you're making it sound. Let's say, someone finds a pit and he covers the pit. And then he removes the cover. So over there, the rule is that he's pater. The guy that took the cover off, he wasn't the one that dug the pit. I was just there for passing by for a few minutes. So I put my backpack on top of it so no one should fall down or something. I had a garbage can cover or something, or a board. I put it on top, but now I gotta go. So I took the board with me. I hope no one falls in. But the guy that made the pit, he's the one that's responsible. Because not the guy who covered it and uncovered it. He covered it and uncovered it. It's like look, I did my thing for a few minutes, but I'm not hanging around over here all day.
Because it was his backpack.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't.
Well, and it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. He doesn't really have the responsibility of that pit. He's a nice guy, but so Amalema. So 1 second. What we're saying over here is. You put it back into the same place. Yeah, this guy over here. See, our comparison is if we had that chart, that blackboard, that what we would do is we have someone putting manure into public property. We have someone digging a pit. Same story. We have someone with the pit, someone covering the pit. That's the guy lifting up the manure. All right, not to take it, but he's lifts it up.
Turns it over.
Turns it over. That turning over. Then we have putting it back down and uncovering the pit. So both of those would be pater. That's his comparison. However, the problem is, Amalei Marzutra Breder of Mario Ravini says, "Me dummy. How can you compare the guy that covers the pit to the person that lifts it up?" When the person covers the pit, there's still a pit underneath the cover.
Yeah.
However, over here, when he lifts up the manure to turn it over, when he's lifting it up, that's not a damage that's covered. That's not a damage at all. Because when you lift it off the ground, then no one slips on that. When you cover the pit, so I know no one's falling into the pit because it's covered, but that's only because it's covered. It still is a pit. Over here, it's not a pit, if you call it the manure a pit. When you lift it up, because you're turning it over, you've removed the problem that the first person did. When you put it back down, that's the whole problem, is putting it back down.
Sure, taking it with him.
So he should be chayav there when he puts it back down.
The part of him that left him is like a sign of acquisition.
Yeah.
It doesn't play any.
Yeah, that's the problem. We're asking that when he lifts it up, he removed the problem. He removed the stumbling. When he puts it back down, he's redoing the stumbling as if he's like the first person.
Oh, yeah.
He should now be responsible, whether he owns it or not.
Wow.
If you want to compare this to something, you should compare it to this. Someone digs a pit. That's someone putting the manure in the public property. Another person comes and fills in the pit with gravel or dirt or whatever. That's as if the person picked it up. There's no pit anymore here. Then someone comes and redigs it. That's like putting it back down. Over there, of course, it's going to be chayav because you removed the whole pit and now you put it back.
Right.
So why did he say that you're pater if you didn't own it? Right? Rabbi Elazar said chayav. That was what we thought we said. Rashi says what's going on over here is that even though you lifted it up, but he didn't lift it up above 3 tvachim, so he didn't really acquire it. He doesn't acquire it, and he didn't really remove it either. It's still considered an open pit.
What if
Yeah.
he have like those pit things, and you have that yellow sign that they have now, but next to like wet floor.
Yeah.
Like, caution. Danger.
Yeah, that should be enough. I mean, that's what people do.
And if someone removes that, they would be the ones
Right.
liable.
Could be.
So,
Hillel and Jonathan are bringing up if someone removes that sign that says wet floor or something, or remove the sign that says wet paint.
what if they can't read? What if they, it's a blind person
Yeah.
or a literate person?
That's
But
a
it said,
problem.
welcome.
Right. That's a problem.
Well, all of these examples, if you add or change one tiny little fact, you come
Yeah.
out with a completely different resolution.
Right. What's happening over here is we have one slight problem. That is that we said that the person's not acquiring it because he's not lifting it up enough.
No.
And he's not really putting it there because he's not lifting up enough. The question is, but Rebbe Lazar said that if he intends to acquire it, that's going to be different. The question is, how does he acquire it by intending if he doesn't lift it up? So Rashi answers this question that there is one opinion that holds that even by looking at something from Hefker, you can acquire it. The person looks at something from Hefker, Habata behefker, according to this opinion, says that he's kaina. If he lifts it up, not 3 tvachim. Oh yeah. Here, the 3 tvachim would, even the under 3 tvachim would still allow him to acquire it if he really wanted to. And so the whole exemption here is because he doesn't want to acquire it, and he's also not putting it there. What would this tell us? That Rabbi Lazar holds chayev or pater. Sounds like he holds chayev. If he chayev. If he doesn't intend to acquire it, he's going to be pater. Yeah. The reason why he's pater by not intending to acquire it is because he doesn't really lift it up above 3. But if he would have lifted up above 3, even if he doesn't intend to acquire it and put it back down, he would be chayev, which means Rabbi Lazar holds chayev. Even though he doesn't want to own it, Rabbi Lazar still holds chayev. That's where we're holding. We had a machlekes, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar. At this point, Rabbi Lazar would be the one that says chayev. The Gemara asks an interesting question. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, 1 second. We're about to do that now. Next piece says, "My duchke der Rabbi Lazar look make going shafchel apachs migimel time with the chinas kavalis spa bain miskavalis baloi look malamayla migimel afkavalis kavalis spa chayev." You have a very interesting Gemara here. We had a case where someone turns over the manure in Rishus Rabbim, someone else gets damaged. The person that turned it over is chayev. Why is he chayev? Comes along Rabbi Lazar and says because he intended to acquire it. Now, in order for that to be the case, it has to be that he didn't pick it up above 3 tvachim. Because if he did pick it up above 3 tvachim, then he wouldn't need to intend to acquire it, to be chayev anyway. The Gemara asks, why does he need to say the case is? Why do you need to adjust the Mishnah and say that ha'haifech is talking about under 3, but he's not intending, but he's intending to acquire it, even though it's under 3? You could do it the other way. You could say that he's not intending to acquire it, and it's over 3. Why did Rabbi Lazar? What was compelling Rabbi Lazar to say that it's under 3, but he was still intending to acquire it? Under 3 tvachim, he's still intending to acquire it. That's why he's going to be high. That he's high because it's his. Why can't he just say he's chayav because he put it there, even if it's not his?
Oh,
The Gemara says, because that would be the same halacha. The Gemara says, Amarava Masnisan Kashise, he had a problem with the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, my area hafach listening. Why does it say he turned over the manure that was in the public property? Let him say he lifted it up. The fact that he said turned it over means that he didn't lift it above 3. So the wording of the Mishnah lended it to be interpreted that he wasn't lifting it above 3. The only reason why it should be chayav in such a case is because it's owned by him. That's why it's chayav.
Taught them like distance from that
Yeah,
and ground, or is it a distance?
No.
that's-
No, it's up.
Much
And I
the
think-
condition. Really cut
Yeah.
this.
Okay. The Gemara now says, Umi de Rabbi Lazar Amar Chayev. Since Rabbi Lazar says Chayev, and we have a machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar. So if Rabbi Lazar says Chayev, what does Rabbi Yochanan hold? Rabbi Yochanan Amar Pater. Rabbi Yochanan has to say Pater. Right? Or else they wouldn't be arguing. And that's not the case. We know they're arguing. Now, what we have now is the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan that says Pater on someone that makes ownerless shards in public property. According to Rabbi Yochanan, someone that digs a pit in public property is going to be exempt. It's not his. Problem is, Gemara says, does Rabbi Yochanan really say that he's going to be Pater if he doesn't own the obstacle in public property? But Tanan, we have a Mishnah. This Mishnah is coming up on the next page. If someone hides thorns or glass, or someone that makes a fence out of thorns, or a fence that fell into public property, if someone gets damaged by it, so he's responsible. So far that doesn't tell me anything. But Rabbi Yochanan says on that, that's only if it's the fence that he has over there is the thorns are stretching out. He didn't trim his hedges. They're stretching out into the public property, and therefore someone's getting hurt by those thorns. But if he holds the thorns back to directly flush with his property, then he's going to be pater. Gemara explains, mitzamtzem my time of pater. Why is he pater if it's flush with his property? It's not sticking out. That's because it's a pit in his private property. That's when it's going to be chayav. How did we just jump to that? Just 1 second. Yeah. Let me see your comment for that. Why does Rabbi Yochanan rule that he's not liable if he confines the thorns within his own property? Is it not because such a fence is equivalent of a pit one digs in his own property? Okay. This refers to one that digs a pit in his own premise and then declares the premise ownerless, thus allowing the public to walk there, but keeps the pit for himself. Likewise, in this case, after building the fence, he relinquishes ownership of the area into which the thorns protrude. But retains the thorns themselves. Therefore, Rabbi Yochanan, who rules that one is not liable in this case, evidently maintains that the Torah does not impose responsibility for a pit or other hazards that was created on one's premises. In his opinion, the pit mentioned in the Torah is one that was dug in the public domain. Oh, yeah, that's obvious. Now that I read it, he's pater when he puts it into his own property. That means he's chayev in the public property. Chayev in the public property means that a bar in Rosh Hashanah, a pit in public property is going to be chayev. That means that even if you don't own it, you should be chayev. You told me that was Rabbi Lazar's opinion that you're chayev. So Rabbi Yochanan has to say pater, but now what you're telling me is Rabbi Yochanan says chayav a pit in public property. Okay. The Gemara says no. Really, if someone makes the damaging items ownerless, he's actually going to be exempt according to Rabbi Yochanan. My time of pater. So why is he pater in his own property? In his own property, he should be chayav. Because it was said on it, person that's brushing his arm or leg, whatever, against the thorn bush is behaving in an abnormal way. And so therefore, even though a pit in private property would be chayav according to Rabbi Yochanan, but over here it's a pit in private property, here's going to be pater because the person that's rubbing against that wall of thorns is acting in an abnormal manner, and so therefore we don't make the owner of that property chayav. It's the person that's behaving abnormally is responsible.
So 2 inches can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Just out there. So the guy forgot to cut it through. And someone walks by normally on the path and there's thorns on the path. That's his problem.
Yeah.
But if I cut it, then I'm okay.
Yeah.
So wait, the Masa, so people who have bougainvilleas or thorn bushes,
It's very common here.
yeah,
All around the place.
along their fence.
Wire.
If they're not, well, why isn't that? But it's not South Africa. And it's trimmed.
It has to be trimmed flush.
It's trimmed flush. They're okay. If someone gets pushed in the outside,
They're not
against it, they're
responsible.
not responsible.
Yeah,
But
that's
if
what
they
come
let
out,
it overgrow,
according to this,
they
yeah.
are responsible.
That's what would come out from this. I had a teacher in 7th grade. He said that his there was some. They always claim it's an anti-Semite, the guy from the city. They wanted him to trim his tree that was hanging too low because it was under 6 feet or whatever. So he said that we gave him a fine or something. He had to go to court because of this. He goes to the court. He said, "I trimmed it. I don't know what you're talking about." So he says, "No, you didn't trim it. It was too low." So he said, "Did you measure it?" He said, "No, but I can tell." He says, "Okay, how tall am I?" And he didn't guess it like exactly. It says, "No, that's." You see, you can't tell. So anyway, they let him go. He came to class the next day. He was very proud.
What a wise.
This teacher, but anyway, you wanted to say something?
I grew up in Miami. There was a lot of trees, and
Still are.
yeah, it's still there. And then the roots would kind of like mess up with the sewage system. So then, if that happened from the sidewalk towards the property, the owner had to take care of it. It was from the sidewalk out the city.
Like this on the swale, and then the city took care of it.
Now, what happened to the guy who was taller? They let him off? He said
Yeah, let him off
because
because the inspector couldn't
measure.
tell. Yeah.
Oh, that's why when they go to my property, they take pictures of everything.
Oh, yeah.
And so they want to prove it. That's really bad.
Yeah.
Well, what's the problem with you?
Once I left some stuff out, and they didn't like that. And once there were herbs, you can't plant a garden in the front lawn.
I'm just
Oh, really?
Under the old law.
Oh, I didn't
And
know
then
that.
the state passed a law that says the community cannot prohibit an owner from growing stuff in his front lawn. So if I have tomatoes in my front lawn, it doesn't look nice. I get a fine for that.
Oh, but now you can, right?
No, now it's prohibited for them to fine you for it. Now
Oh,
you can
very
plant.
good.
They want to encourage people.
Very good.
The one guy said, "This is not edible stuff. These are weeds." I said, "No, these are herbs." He knew from his mother. He knew herbs. He said, "Okay, I'll let you off."
Wow.
Really fussy because it didn't look like everybody else's lawn.
That's pretty cool. So if you don't mow your lawn and they want to give you a fine, you say, "What do you
It's
mean?
a-
This is
it's herbs,
medicinal herbs. This is herbs."
But they still have a rule on.
I know, but if you claim that it's herbs, then you can get out of it.
And they do
Sorry.
the not mowing the lawn on height. So it has to be less than a certain height. Swale.
Inches or something.
Swale, I did find you for If you don't mow your swale, they fine you.
Okay, so it says like this.
You don't mow their swale.
Does Rabbi Yochanan actually say that you're going to be chayev in a is that we're holding? Rabbi Yochanan going to say chayev? Yeah. The problem is, let's see. Amar Rabbi Yochanan halacha kastam mishnah. The halacha is like kastam mishnah. Tanan achayfa bar b'shus rabim. No. Do we say that Rabbi Yochanan says pater? That's where we're holding. But Rabbi Yochanan would say pater in public property. He's only chayev in private property, but it'd be pater in public property. So, but why is mafriya chayev? That's public property. What was mafriya chayev? Because it's your money. That's it. When it's sticking into the public property because you own it, that's why you're chayev. But if you don't own it, you would be pater. So it says 1 second, but Rabbi Yochanan says halacha kastam mishnah. This is a rule that we have that the halacha is like a stam mishnah. If there's an anonymous mishnah, that's the halacha. Where do we get that rule from? Rabbi Yochanan. So if Rabbi Yochanan set up that rule, halacha is like a stam mishnah. If you find a stam mishnah that says chayev for shards in a public property or a pit in public property, then that would mean Rabbi Yochanan holds chayev, because that was Rabbi Yochanan's rule that the halacha is like a stam mishnah. Tanana chayfa bar b'shus rabim nafsei v'sharach amar umeis chayev. Someone digs a pit in public property, and an ox or a donkey falls in, it's going to be chayev. Really, it's Rabbi Yochanan. Really, Rabbi Yochanan says chayev. You just switch the whole thing around now. And the midah Rabbi Yochanan amar chayev, Rabbi Elazar amar pater. Rabbi Elazar is going to have to say pater. This goes against everything that we said in the Gemara until now. Amar Rabbi Elazar mishum Rabbi Shmuel. You can't say that because Rabbi Elazar says in the name of Rabbi Shmuel that someone that digs a pit in public property is one of the two things that the Torah makes it yours, even if it's not. So how could he say? How could Rabbi Elazar say pater? It says like kasha. That wasn't Rabbi Elazar's own opinion. That was the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel, whom he was quoting. But he himself would say pater. He quoted Rabbi Shmuel, doesn't mean he holds like that. Turns out Rabbi Yochanan is the one that says chayev on things that are made ownerless in public property. Now the truth is, if you look back on the top of the page, Rabbi Yochanan says that lachan nefila machlekes. Machlekes is lachan nefila. Mafkin Uzakav the Almas Mechayvik. I knew this before from the Gemara, the way Rabbi Yochanan explained the last brisa. The Gemara before already. If you learned the Gemara before, you would already know that it would come out like this. The Gemara ignores this Gemara here. Ignores the information that we had before and comes out independently of Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Okay.
I don't know if it was a story. A guy who dug a pit or had a pit and wanted to fill it in with soil. They wanted to buy soil, and someone else had a mound of dirt and wanted to get rid of it. So they did some sort of extreme.
Gemara Megillah.
Oh, what's
with I think with Haman and Achashverosh. It says he had a pit, he had a thing. I don't know if there was a Gemara Megillah about that. It says let him, each one, he wanted to get rid of the Jews and he wanted the money or something, something like that.
What?
He would say let there's the one that was like that needed the dirt to fill up his pit. One person had a pit, one person had dirt that he needed to get rid of. So they just joined together to get, somehow that had to do with getting rid of the Jews. It would be a benefit for both of them.
They just fill up the pit.
Yeah.
I
don't remember exactly how it came in. Okay, the next Mishnah says, if someone pours water in a public property, but someone gets damage from it, you see, this is a little different than the last Mishnah. Last Mishnah was someone had a jug that broke in the public property, and now there's water everywhere. this person didn't have a jug that breaks. He actually took his jug and poured it. It wasn't an accident. He did it on purpose. His chayiv in this case is responsible for the damages. Someone, we had just had this in quoting.
If you got a leak at the bottom, no, it's going out.
Yeah, that would be go under the category of the last Mishnah, which would be a machlokes Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. That was the last Mishnah.
But it's not made of shards.
No, or water. Oh, if he makes it hefker, he doesn't make it hefker, then everyone holds higher.
You never knew what happened.
Then everyone holds higher. You're saying because it was an accident. Yeah, that was the case. Everyone holds higher. If someone hides thorns or glass, that's a good question, by the way. That brings up the last Mishnah. Someone makes his fence out of thorns. Together, more a fence that falls into public property. And someone gets damaged. Chayiv in his gun is chayiv for the damages that he caused. Amarav, we had this before once. Rav says, Leishano Ella, this was only taught. The tinfu kela b'mayim, that his clothing got dirty in the water. We have water in public property. If someone slips in it and hurts himself, we say that that's the ground that hurt him. That's not the water that hurt him. It's the ground. And Rav holds that that it has to be actually yours or something like that. But if he damaged himself, he's pater. Why? Because he got damaged by the ground of the world, which is not owned by this person. So he's only damaged by the water because his garments got dirty. Follow? We said, but kalim are pater in a bar. We explained last time that it's not a bar, it's a shard. The water in public property is not considered a bar, it's considered a shard. It's considered his ox, his money, that he's responsible for the damages. Rav Huna is a student of Rav. He tells to Rav, why are you saying that he's going to be exempt if he damages himself on this? But his water mixed with the dirt on the floor, and even though he didn't get hurt by the impact against the water, it would be like a belly flop. But this was because he got hurt with his mud. But his water mixed with the dirt is considered his mud. Gemara says, do you think that the water did not get absorbed and it made mud? We're talking about that it got absorbed and there's no mud over here. Okay. There's different ways of reading this Gemara, but basically he's only going to be chayav for the water that's there, but not for when the water gets absorbed and gets damaged by the ground.
It's like water that.
Right.
It's a double standard when you look at the last Mishnah with us. Muddy water steps, he could still be,
When he's in the water?
purified, even though the tick, is in the mud. So there the mud is counting for him.
No, because when he stepped into the water, when he stepped into the mud, he already had gone through the water.
And here
we're saying that there's no water, that the water does not turn into mud. I don't know exactly what's going on, but the water didn't turn into mud. So if he gets damaged, it's because of the ground, not because of the mud. It's not, we think it's his mud because he mixed the water his water mixed with the soil and be turned into mud. Saying that's not the case over here. That it's the water is there standing on top of the mud, not mixed in.
oh, so then it's the same. So the water is on top of it.
Tarti Lamali, why do I need two cases where Rav and the Mishnah tell me the same thing? Where you're going to be chayiv if there's water on the ground. One is in the summer, one is in the winter. The Tanya, there's going to be a difference between the seasons. All of these things that we mentioned, place can be same that you're allowed to open up the drain pipes, the garfen same, and empty out the septic tanks. You're not allowed to do that in the summer But you are allowed to do that in the winter. You're allowed to open up the tanks, let out everything in the winter because the whole street is full of mud anyway, and you just let it go. However, even though there is permission to do that, but that doesn't mean you're exempt from payment if it causes any damage. Okay, so that's the chiddush over here, is that even if you have permission, you're still chayav. Someone hides thorns. One of the cases over there was that if there was a fence that was made out of thorns, you're only going to be chayav if the branches, what's it called? Bougainvillea. Bougainvillea. You don't pronounce the L at the end. Bougainvillea. They have some of them have a huge thorn, be like 2 inches long thorn. Very pretty little flower on it, but it's it's like some of them are like purple.
There's two parts in front of the
Don't ask me how to spell it.
two bougainvilleas.
Put them in front of your door so no one will go in.
No, I have pots on this side.
It's quite common here.
Yours on wheels,
But they have a
so
thorn
you
that's
leave, you put them in
huge.
front.
Yeah.
These come.
So that's only if it's sticking into the public property. My time of potter, why is he exempt if he keeps it flush with his property? Because the guy that's walking is doing the abnormal behavior by brushing against your property. He should just be walking in the public property and not rubbing his. Probably going to claim that his sleeve got the pull in it because of the thorns that were there. It tore his garment. Well, it would be a bar. It would be a bar b'shus harabim, be exempt on kalim, but he owns it. So he owns it. Maybe according to Rav, it would be a shar. According, maybe it scratched him. If he's bruised or something. Okay, Tan Rabbanan. You see, this is hazardous waste. What do you do with the hazardous waste?
Oh.
So how do you get rid of it? So here he has thorns and glass pieces. Doesn't know how to get rid of it. So his friend has a wall that, those days sometimes walls had like 2 sides to it, and in bricks like on both sides, and in the middle you could actually drop something in, and it would just be there, stuck there, until the wall.
Blocks.
CBS blocks.
Oh yeah,
The hollow you could.
yeah. What are they called? The
CBS.
CBS? No, there's another word for it. Oh, it's cinder
Cinder
block.
blocks.
Cinder block. Okay. These blocks, they have a little hole in it, so he stuck it into that hole. Now the owner of the wall comes and knocks his wall down. Now all of those hazardous needles and everything or whatever was there is now exposed.
Is it in the public domain or is this?
It's in a public domain now.
Oh, it's
But not all there's just a rabbim, and it fell into the public property v'zikon because damage chayiv ametzniya. The one that hit it there is going to be chayiv, not the one that broke the wall. Rabbi Yochanan leishanol b'kaisel ruah. That's only if he hit it in a bad wall. Then the one that hit it there is responsible. You never should have hit it in a wall that said on it that demolition next week. You shouldn't have hit it on it. Aval b'kaisel bari, but if it would have been a strong wall, then ametzniya pater. He actually got rid of disposed of this hazardous material quite effectively. And Chayiv Balakaisel, the guy that knocked the wall down, he's responsible. He would knock the wall down. He should have taken care to hide those things that were hidden in there, that were correctly hidden. Amar Ravina Zaysemeres, Ravina says, according to this, Machasa Bayrei, Vidalya Shel Chavere, Babal Deliv, and Ataldalya Chayiv Balabar. Someone that takes someone else's cover, and he covers a pit. His pit. Someone digs a pit, and then he goes and he takes someone's garbage pail cover. He uses it to cover, or a bucket or whatever, to cover his pit. So the owner of the bucket comes and takes away his pit, takes away his bucket, which exposes the pit, Chayav Balabar, the original owner is of the digger of the pit is going to be chayav. This is similar to the guy that you see here. We have to match it up. We had the board. It would be easier. I have a pit, and I have thorns. Okay, that's what we're comparing, pit and thorns. The owner of let's say the pit gets a cover, someone else's cover to protect his pit. The owner of the thorns puts the thorns in someone else's wall. He's using someone else's item to protect his damages. Then the owner of the cover the owner of the cover comes and takes it away. The owner of the wall knocks down his wall. And the rule is, by both of those cases, the rule is that the original owner is going to be chayav. That would be comparable if the wall would be a weak wall, right? That's what we're seeing. Okay, the Gemara says pshita. Says what's Ravina's chiddush? It's so clear that comparison. Over there, when it comes to the wall, the owner of the wall doesn't know who put the needles, thorns, and broken glass in his wall. So it's not his responsibility to go find out who it was. He doesn't know who it is. The guy didn't leave his name on the shard saying that those are mine in case you ever knock down this wall. You let me know and I'll remove them and put them in someone else's wall. He didn't leave his name there. So how is he supposed to know how to get rid of it? So over there, we would say it's the original owner's problem. It's the original owner, not here. He doesn't even know who to tell. However, over here, Aval Hacha, the Yad Alei, when the guy takes the cover of his bucket or whatever, and he takes it away from the pit, you should tell the owner of the pit, by the way, you should know your pit's exposed. I'm taking the cover back. You have to go. And he didn't do that. So I could have thought maybe the guy that takes because he knows whose pit it is, and he doesn't go and tell him, maybe it should have been his responsibility. He didn't do that. Should have told him.
The only two. The one with the CBS or the wall didn't know it was in there.
I know. But now that he knocks down the wall, he sees it there.
Once it's
right.
but at the point before the wall's not there, he doesn't know. Whereas in the other case, before someone falls in,
he sees. But in both cases, when the protection is removed, we see the exposed damage. Yes. The question is, he doesn't know whose it is to notify him. So it's not his responsibility, but at least it's maybe his responsibility to notify him. Kamash Malan, that even then he's going to be pater. Even though he took it away and he didn't notify the person, he's still going to be exempt.
The same by the pit.
By the pit,
He removes it.
and he didn't notify him, he's going to be exempt. Tanur Rabbanu was taught in the Braisa, Hasidim Arishonim, the early Hasidim. This is for you, Teskeslev. Come on. They would hide their thorns and their glass in their fields. They would dig it in 3 tvachim deep, so it shouldn't block the plow. And if it would block the plow, then it would again end up being brought up to the surface, which would be a problem. So they dig it in, make sure that they don't cause any damages. Rav Sheshes Shadile Benura. Rav Sheshes would throw his thorns into fire. Rava Shadilu Bediglas. Rava threw it into the Tigris River. The Tigris River was much lower than the Euphrates, and people would not go in it. The Euphrates had easier access to get to. The Tigris was much lower. The dip down, it was hard to access the Tigris. That was the Euphrates was more like a beach. So, I don't know where I know that from. I think I made that up.
No, I wouldn't accuse you of making it up.
And I have it in my head. Okay.
We have lakes like that. They're called lakes, but if you walk into them, you drop down 100 feet because they're really pits.
Oh.
And there are other ones that they made so people gradually go into them.
maybe you know it because the yeshiva of Nahar Nai was on the Tigris. Maybe they use that for not Tigris, on Euphrates.
Oh,
And so you knew that they could go in.
I don't know. I have it in my head.
Wait, that one makes sense, because it's a small. It gets to-
I know that. I thought the
Can't be,
Tigris was harder to access.
Well, it's further.
No,
away.
not just that it was deeper, but to get, you had to go down
Like a
to get
canyon?
into it. Yeah, like
it's in
a
the
canyon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, "Haiman de boilam heavy chassid." If someone wants to be a chassid, lekayim mili de nezikin. You should be careful not to cause any damages. That's a chassid. Remember the Gemara about the chassid burns his nails.
Yeah,
The tzaddik buries the nails. The chassid burns the nails. Remember that? It's a Gemara somewhere.
Don't you burn your nails? Doesn't everybody
The regular guy bites his nails.
bites his nails? He swallows it.
Because the nails could cause
Probably.
a woman to miscarry. Yeah, there was that video from Mendy Pellin. You know, Mendy Pellin. It was like a Chabad comedian, but he had this video about they're closing Kingston Avenue because someone dropped their nail. It was like, it's funny. But anyway, so
Thanks for remembering that.
Rava Amar Mili Davis. Rava says Pirkei Avos. Want to be a chassid, you have to keep Pirkei Avos. V'amila Mili de brachas, and some say that it's brachas. Saying your brachas properly makes a person a chassid. Yeah, I saw the Masha last time around this Gemara. The Masha said that he divide up the Torah into 3 things. Usually we say there's Ben Adam Lamakim, Ben Adam Lachaverai. He adds in Ben Adam La'atzmai. Ben Adam Lachaverai would be Nezikin. Ben Adam Lamakim is probably brachas. I guess Ben Adam La'atzmai would be Avos. Yeah, actually, Maral does that a lot. Divides everything into 3. That fits with the comedian that had the luchas. You know, he said, "Here I have the 15," and he drops 1. Right? And he says the 10 Commandments. What was that from?
Sounds like Mel Brooks. But I don't know who.
Is it Mel Brooks?
I don't know.
Anyway, Moshe is bringing the luchas down. There were 3 tablets there, and one of them fell. And he says, "I hear it's the 10 Commandments corrected." So anyway, if you divide the Torah into those 3 parts, okay. And this is a new Mishnah. Here, the guy is trying to make fertilizer, and what he does is he takes his straw, puts it in the street. When the carts and people would walk on it, would trample it, it would get disintegrated and it would turn into compost, and then he would take it back and put it in his field. It would get the public to work on his compost. And someone gets damaged by it. He has to pay for the damages that happen. And whoever wants can take it. Yeah. So he may get benefit from it, he may not. You know, he's using the public, but he could also lose it. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says anything that causes damage in the public property, you have to pay. And whoever wants can take it. The Gemara is going to discuss. It seems to be repetitious. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, what is he arguing with the Tanna Kamma? Same thing. You hire for the damages, and whoever wants can take it. We're going to see in the Gemara. Let's wait. This was someone turns over manure. This was the Gemara we had before today. It's just around public property, and someone else gets damaged by it. Chayiv Beniska is responsible for those damages. Oh yeah, you have to give credit. Shem Amrin. Okay, Lema Masnisan like Rabbi Yehuda. Let us say that our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer. Rabbi Yehuda says B'shasi tzos v'alim. At the time when people take out their fertilizer into the public property, for other mighty zivla, people are allowed to take it. They're actually allowed to take it out. And they could leave it and pile it up for 30 days. So that it should be trampled upon by the feet of the people and the feet of the animals. Excuse me. this is one of the conditions. Naftali, you quoted this before. There's conditions that when Yeshua came into the land, brought the people in, he told them that you have to do certain things for the public. One of them is you have to allow the neighbors to put out their straw or whatever into the public property to be trampled upon. Yeah, you're allowed to do that. Now, it seems if you're allowed to do it, then you should really be pater if it causes damage. And here we're saying in our Mishnah that you're chayiv if it causes damage. Our Mishnah is probably not Rabbi Yehuda. It says, I feel tame Rabbi Yehuda. No, our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. Why do Rabbi Yehuda shem hizek mashali mashi hizek? Rabbi Yehuda agrees that even though you're allowed to, but he says that you still have to pay for damages if it causes damage. Vatanan, 1 second, but was taught in a Mishnah. Maybe it's supposed to be about Tanya. I have on the side of my Gemara. It was taught in the Brisa. Rabbi Yehuda says that, remember the case with the camel? Camel that has an overload of straw on its back, and it drives by a store, and it gets caught on fire. So if the candle was inside the store, then the owner of the camel's chayav. If this candle was outside the store, then the owner of the store, the storekeeper had the candle, then the storekeeper's chayav. But if it was a Hanukkah candle, then the owner of the store is exempt because he had permission to put the Hanukkah candle outside. This the Gemara learned how high the Hanukkah candles have to be, by the way. But we see that if there's permission, then you're exempt. You're telling me there's permission in your chayav. I see if there's permission, then you're automatically exempt. Gemara says, my love, mishum b'rishus bezdin. It must mean that's permission from the court to put it there. So why should you be chayav? You should be pater always. The Gemara says, like mishum b'rishus mitzvah. But there, it's not permission to do it. There, you're supposed to do it. There's a difference between permission and supposed to. Permission means you're allowed to. But when you're supposed to, then you're going to be exempt as well. When you're allowed to, then you're chayav. But when you're supposed to, then you're going to be. So when it says permission over there, there's two ways of interpreting permission. Permission could mean that you're supposed to, but permission could mean that you're allowed to. Allowed to is still chayav for the damages. You're supposed to, that means you're going to be exempt. The Tanya was taught in a brisa, Rabbi Yehuda mitzvah. I have a clear brisa that says not that you're allowed to, but that you're supposed to. There's a command that you're supposed to do it. Okay. Tashima. Come and listen. All these things that we said, that you're allowed to cause damage on a public property, but if they do cause damage, you have to pay. Rabbi Yehuda paiter. Rabbi Yehuda says you're exempt. Clearly, the Mishnah is not Rabbi Yehuda. We have a quote that looks to be exactly like our Mishnah that says chayev, even though you're allowed to put it. You're allowed to ruin the public property, but your garbage or whatever, sewers. But if it causes damage, you have to pay. And Rabbi Yehuda says you don't have to pay. Our Mishnah must not be Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Nachman Masnisin Shlei B'Shas Yitzhak Svalim Rabbi Yehuda. It's exactly the opposite. Our Mishnah is talking about why do you have to pay? Because you opened it during the wrong season. And it actually is exactly the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, if it's the wrong season, you have to pay. Our Mishnah is talking about our Mishnah is talking about the wrong season. When does Rabbi Yehuda say you're exempt? That's when it's in the season that you're allowed to, in the winter. Ravashi says, Tivnai B'kashay Tanan Mishum D'Misharki. There's a difference between what Rabbi Yehuda said and what the Mishnah says. Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to take out the manure into the public property to get trampled upon and turn into fertilizer. The Mishnah was talking about straw, where straw is very slippery when it gets wet. And the straw causes damage. Rabbi Yehuda never mentioned about straw in a public property. Yeah. You want me to stop?
No,
Let me see. Let's see how far we can
I
get.
want you to be able to go to sleep.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I didn't
You
sleep.
didn't go to
Either.
sleep? Well, I said he was gonna do it.
Yeshiva had it for bringing last night. These guys like this. They at 3:45. They're still bringing out the Danishes and stuff.
So you're obligated to be up with them.
I was supposed to go there to show how important the Teskislev is.
Until what time? Last night they didn't dance all night.
Danced?
Here, yeah, the band, we had a band and everything.
Yeah. Till what time? What time did it come?
3 o'clock.
Oh, 3 o'clock. So the same
Really?
thing.
No.
This
no,
is just until 4.
it was 12.
Oh.
Yeah, older people.
Whoever comes to acquire it can take it. Okay, I have a problem with this Gemara a little bit. There's something that's not clear. So look at your notes while we're learning to see if you can explain it to me. Amar Rav says, we're talking about someone puts his straw or whatever into the public property and it's turning into fertilizer, it's becoming compost, and whoever wants can come and take it. This sort of like discourages people from doing this because you should know that you may not get your stuff back. You know, you can do it, but it's not really 100% profit. So Rav says that whoever wants can take it. They can take the principle, that means the straw. They can also take, they can also take the improvement to the straw, because now it turns into compost. That's very important. So the straw gets worth more when it turns into compost. So the people can take not only the basic, the straw, but also the improvement. Zir says, no, they can only take the improvement, but they have to give back the base. Now, I'm not sure if that means that when they take the compost, they have to pay the guy for what the straw was worth, and they're allowed to take the improvement, or if it means they're splitting up the straw from the improvement. Part of it turned into compost, part of it is still straw. They can only take the part that was already decomposed and not, I'm not sure exactly. Okay, whatever the case is, I like this Gemara because Rav means a lot and Zeiri means small. Rav means big, Zeiri means small. So the easy way to remember this Gemara is that Rav says you can take a lot and Zeiri says you can take a little. So that's just my simon to remember this. Yeah, Zeiri. Zeir means a drop, a little bit. So Zeiri says you can only take the improvement, but not the principle. But my kamifagi, what's the machlekes? Rav Sava, Rav holds konsegufa mishum shvachan. Rav says that you put a fine on the principle because of the improvement, because we allow you to take the improvement, because you're getting improvement. So we also put a fine on the principle as well, on the basic stuff that you put out there. Zeiri says no, we don't put there's only a penalty on the improvement that's caused by the public that they're allowed to take, but the principle you have to give back. And it was taught in the Mishnah. When it comes to putting out manure, you see, manure doesn't really gain much by putting it into the public property. Straw turns into fertilizer, but manure is already fertilizer. So you don't really need to squish it to turn it into, disintegrate it to turn into fertilizer. It's already a fertilizer as it is.
The manure is there, people don't want to walk in the manure, so they walk around into the store and make more manure.
Or they walk into the pit.
In those days, they were walking on the street in the thing. It was dirty. It was much different than today. The cleanliness that we have today, you can't compare. They had dirt floors. You know, they had dirt to clean up dirt that was on the floor. They had a pile of dirt that they would use to cover other dirt that they didn't want to, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was a different world. Huh?
Clean dirt, right?
Yeah.
The butcher shops still have straw on the floor. When I was a kid, I go in the butcher shop.
Right.
Now there's no butcher shops. You go in the supermarket. You know, like it's easy. You take it. The old days, you go and they cut it up.
There was a fish store in a fish restaurant in Los Angeles, Fish Grill.
Yeah.
They had straw on the floor.
You know what? I think I was there once because also
on,
the Mexican restaurant
Beverly or something.
had straw on the floor years ago.
Oh, yeah?
On Pico.
They wanted fertilizer from it.
No,
I don't know what
for
it was. It was
just
sort of like a decor, whatever it's called.
for decor, for the straw.
Now it's too expensive to have straw.
Oh, the straw is expensive, or
No, the
grill
fish
is more-
store has become so expensive.
Oh, really?
Oh,
It was a great place.
it's out of reach now.
Oh, that's surprising. It was like a perfect restaurant. You went there, everything was like simple. Like, yeah, I haven't been to LA in a long time, but
I think you want to.
could be. Okay. So what we're saying now, we have a machlekes Rav and Seir. How much are you allowed to take? The interesting thing is that when it comes to the fertilizer, it doesn't say you're allowed to take anything. Now the explanation must be explanation must be because you're only allowed to take the improvement. And there is no improvement on fertilizer, on manure. It doesn't turn in, it is what it is. So the kasha is, according to Rav, that says you're allowed to take the improvement and the principle. Why aren't you allowed to take the principle of the manure? Manure has principle, it just doesn't have improvement.
It's funny you say kasha.
Kasha. So Tana l'Reishivod in l'Seifa. The Gemara says, "Oh, don't worry about the fact that it doesn't say that you're allowed to take it. You really are allowed to take it. It just doesn't say it because it said it in another part of the Mishnah." So it's Vatani Allah. It can't be Asur Mishum Gezel. It says it's prohibited because of theft. You can't take it. It says Kiknani Asur Mishum Gezel. Akula Masnisin Kai Loises Shekadam Mizacha. Nah, you misread that Mishnah. Mishnah says it's prohibited because of theft. That's talking about the guy that took it. You can't steal it from him. But not that you're not allowed to take it. Of course, you're allowed to take it from the street, which means that you're allowed to take even the base without the principle. Allowed to take, so it fits with Rav. It says it says, but it's not so. You're making this up. The Tanan, it was taught in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says someone takes a straw or hay into the public property to turn it into fertilizer, and someone gets damaged by it, they're responsible to pay for the damages. And whoever comes to take it acquires it. Mutter mishum gezel, and it says, and it's permissible because of theft, which means there's no theft issue there. Someone that turns over manure in the public property, and someone else gets damaged by it, chayev, also mishum gezel, and it's prohibited because of theft. Which means that that's not saying that the person that took it, you're not allowed to steal it from him, or you are allowed to steal it from him. That can't be. It can't be allowed to steal. It must mean that that's just repeating what you're allowed to take from the public area. Apparently, you're not allowed to take the manure from the public area because there is no improvement to it. And it's a proof to Zeiri that says you're only allowed to take the improvement. You're not allowed to take the basic. You're not allowed to take the principle. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak comes along with the great answer. He says, Galal Karamis, you're asking me about manure. Davar sheyesh b'shvach kansa guf mishum shvachi. Davar shein b'shvach lekansa shvach lekansa. If there's improvement, they said you're allowed to take the improvement and the basic. But if there's no improvement, then they didn't say that you're allowed to take anything. Because they don't have to discourage you from putting it there because there's no improvement anyway. If there's improvement, so to discourage you, they said you're allowed to take the improvement, and they added in you're also allowed to take the principle. But when it comes to manure, there's no improvement anyway, so you're not allowed to take anything.
That's what he says.
That would be Rav's opinion. Notice, even though you're allowed to take the principle, but that's only in cases where there's improvement. You can't ask a question from manure. The Gemara is a question. And according to the opinion that says that they put a fine on the principle because of the improvement, is the fine there from when the improvement is already there, or is it immediately that you're allowed to take it? Once they put it there, in other words, are you only allowed to take the unimproved? Are you only allowed to take the improvement and the unimprovement once the improvement comes, or are you allowed to take the unimproved even right away? If someone put it out, you grab the straw. Well, Tashima, come and listen. Me, the Kairin and Galo, the fact that you asked the question before about manure, which doesn't have any improvement, obviously that means that you're allowed to take it immediately because there is no improvement over there. So there's only the unimproved. The Gemara says, V'tizbra, do you really think so? Kiarin and Galo, Mekami Delishner of Nachman. You only asked that question before we understood what was going on, before Rav Nachman gave us the answer. Labasa Dashani Rav Nachman, after Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak gave us the answer, that says that there's a difference between if there is improvement to no improvement, though Miyakil Amir Migal Klal, that's not even a question over here. You don't take it. You're not allowed to take the manure. We thought you were allowed to take the manure, but it turns out you're not allowed to take it. Okay. Let us say that this is really a machlekes tanaim. Starts by ribbis, a document that has in it interest, a loan document that says in it that there's interest in it.
You can't take interest.
You're not allowed to take interest. So say we make a penalty. Veina goiva, you can't use that document to collect. Layas a karen, layas a ribbis, not the principal, and you can't collect the interest, of course not. But Rav Meir holds even the principal you can't collect. Kamma say you can collect the principal, but you can't collect the interest. Rav probably holds like Rav Meir. Rav says that you can confiscate the straw and the improvement from the street. That would be like Rav Meir. And Zeiri Zeiri, who says you're only allowed to take the improved, that he would hold like the Rabbanan that says you're not allowed to take the interest. Rav would say to you, I could even follow the Rabbanan that say when it comes to interest that you only don't collect the interest, but the basic you're allowed to collect. Over there, the Rabbanan only said this because Karen de Bertera, because the principle is actually permissible. But over here, it's the straw that causes the damage. So that's why Rav says you can take the straw. Ziri says to you, I can even say according to Rav Meir that when it comes to interest, you're not allowed to even take the principle. Rav Meir only said it over there. At the time of writing the document, you already messed up by evaluating the interest into it. But over here, who says that it's going to cause damage? Maybe no one's going to slip in it. But over there, you already had a problem even by setting up this whole business, this whole interest that itself was a problem. Okay, we'll have to say maybe it's another Tanai. If someone takes the straw to the public property to turn into fertilizer, and someone gets damaged by it, is responsible. Whoever comes to take it can take it, and you're not allowed to just take it from him. I don't know what Asur Mishum Gezel says. You're allowed to take it. What does Asur Mishum Gezel mean? I guess it means you're not allowed to take it from the person that took it, I guess. Anything that causes damage in the public property, you have to pay. And anyone that takes it keeps it, and it's not a problem of theft. When it says Hagufa Kasha, 1 second, they have a contradiction. First you said whoever wants can take it. Then you say that it's prohibited because of theft. What does it mean? You're allowed to take it or you're not allowed to take it? We answered that in passing and quickly we answered that from the person that took it, you're not allowed to take it. But that was the Gemara before had attempted that. The Gemara here answers you're allowed to take the improvement. But the principle you're not allowed to take. That's what it means. That's the problem of theft. That's the Tanakama, which is who? That's the opinion of Zeiri. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel comes along to say, I feel you're even allowed to take the principle, the unimproved, and that would be the opinion of Rav. The Gemara says, Leziri vade tanayi. According to Zeiri, that says that you're allowed to take only the principle, then this is clearly argues with Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. But Rav, according to Rav, that says that you're allowed to take both. Milema Tanai, does it have to be a machlekes Tanai? Maybe Rav can fit with both Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, which that fits perfectly, but maybe it can also fit with the Tanakama. Amalach Rav could say to you, the Kuli Alma Kanzaguf Mishim Shvachan, everyone holds that there is a penalty on the unimproved because of the improved. And over here, it's a machlekes if how to tell a person when he comes to ask. Itmar was stated, Rav Huna Rav. We actually have an opinion from Rav himself. Rav Huna in the name of Rav, halacha vein meirin kain. The way it would work is like this: that it says, whoever takes it acquires it. But Asur Mishum Gezel, that's if someone comes to ask, we tell them that they're not allowed to take it. If they took it, it's theirs. But L'chatchila, we tell, if someone is asking, we don't say that they're allowed to take it. Ravada Barav Malacha Meirinkin, Ravada Barav says the halacha is that if someone asks you, we tell them that they are allowed to take it. Gemara says, Eini, is it so that we say that you're not allowed to take it? Rav Huna, according to Rav Huna Marav, Rav Huna Afker Chushli. Rav Huna said that people were allowed to take barley that was peeled and that was thrown into the street so that it should get dried. And Rav Huna said that whoever wants can take it. Ravada Barava Afkers, in other words, as a penalty, he said that they're allowed to take it. So the public can take it. Silikusta. Silikusta is the mush from the dates. After it was turned into beer, they used to make beer out of the date honey. And what is it called? Like the malt that they would take that Bishlaima Ravada Barava Kishmaite. I understand Ravada Barava, he holds that we tell people that they're allowed to take it. Halacha Mayrin came, the halacha is so, and we also paskin like that if someone asks. But maybe Rav Huna that said that they were allowed to take the barley, maybe he changed his mind. It says Hanu Musran Havu. No, over there was different because we warned the people that they shouldn't be doing that, they shouldn't be putting it out. And they put it out anyway. So that's why over there he made a special rule that they're allowed to take it. But normally we don't tell people that they're allowed to take it. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Move it. You're not complying.
Rabbi,
Thank you.